Rachel Reeves has brought the UK to a critical point. What follows may shock even her. She began her tenure at number 11 poorly, taking over an economy that was finally showing improvement, only to stifle it. Hello viewers, welcome to UK Pancakes. If you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe and click the notifications bell so you don't miss any insides about UK elites. I could detail her early mistakes extensively, but here's a brief summary of the most significant ones. She eliminated the winter fuel payment for 10 million pensioners, igniting immediate backlash from voters. She granted public sector workers £9 billion in pay increases without requiring any increase in productivity. She alarmed taxpayers with warnings of a difficult budget, then left them in suspense for 4 months, undermining confidence and growth. She imposed a record £40 billion in tax increases when the tax burden was already at an unprecedented level. She stated she wouldn't raise taxes on working people, only to do so through an increase in national insurance for employers. She introduced inheritance tax on farms and family businesses, penalizing some of the hardest working individuals in Britain. She damaged her own credibility by exaggerating her qualifications and having friends cover the costs of her expensive suits. Consequently, when she attempted to cut £5 billion from disability benefits in the spring statement, she lacked the moral authority to do so. Rather than saving money, Reeves instigated internal conflict within Labour. This leads to the real surprise. Amid the turmoil in the bond market and backlash from businesses, Reeves has shown a glimmer of understanding. She seems to recognize that she cannot achieve growth solely through taxing and spending. However, the rest of Labour appears oblivious to this reality. Or indifferent. While Reeves adheres to her fiscal guidelines, Angela Rayner is eager to disregard them by increasing spending and taxes, with the support of the Labour Party. Prime Minister Keir Starmer is caught in a dilemma, trying to satisfy everyone while worrying about the challenge from Nigel Farage and Reform UK. No one in the Labour Party wants to discuss the budget deficit, soaring borrowing costs, or the spiralling national debt. They simply want the Chancellor to tax and spend, then tax and spend again. In an ironic twist, Reeves now seems to be the only responsible figure in the room, which is surprising given her previous blunders. Let's not overstate the situation. The Chancellor's late commitment to fiscal responsibility is insufficient. Her credibility is already damaged, and Starmer is now reversing her major decisions. No one trusts her anymore. Last November, she assured there would be no more tax increases, potentially for the entire Parliament. Experts are now warning that further tax hikes are likely in October, possibly amounting to another £30 billion. This will once again hinder growth. As we reported this morning, Britain is heading towards bankruptcy. Reeves has learned some tough lessons, but too slowly and at too great a cost. The rest of the Labour Party has not learned anything. The true concern isn't that she has finally become serious, it's that she appears to be the only one in the cabinet who is. The UK may have experienced the fastest GDP growth in the G7 earlier this year, but that progress is now at risk. Economic activity is anticipated to decline in the coming months, and the challenges to public finances are increasing. Professor Joe Nellis, an economic advisor at MHA, noted that the Chancellor is in a tough position. In an exclusive interview with GB News, he stated, "She must navigate weak economic growth forecasts, a rising public sector debt burden, and limited fiscal flexibility due to her own fiscal restrictions." Despite the UK starting the year strongly, with a 0.7% GDP growth in the first quarter, the highest in the G7, this trend is unlikely to persist. Economic activity is expected to decrease in the upcoming months due to global challenges and fragile domestic business confidence. With the debt-to-GDP ratio approaching 100% and debt servicing costs projected to exceed £100 billion annually for the foreseeable future, the options are becoming limited. Professor Nellis outlined 4 potential strategies that Reeves could employ to address this economic situation. However, she faces pressure from a party that has stopped heeding her advice, which could have dire consequences for everyone. Reeves' fiscal commitment to ensure that day-to-day public sector spending is covered by tax revenues and that debt decreases as a share of the economy by 2029-30 is now under significant strain. Rising borrowing costs and ongoing inflation have made it challenging to achieve these goals without sacrificing important policy objectives. He suggested several approaches the Chancellor might consider to improve the situation. Strategic spending in key sectors could provide a necessary boost to the economy, increase future tax revenues, and help alleviate the public sector debt burden in the long run. This would be similar to extending a mortgage to manage payments better. Reeves has already expressed her support for major projects like expanding Heathrow and developing the Oxford-Cambridge corridor. By cutting red tape and speeding up these initiatives, the government could quickly unlock productivity gains and job opportunities. Reforming regulations on pension fund investments could also create new capital sources for additional infrastructure projects, enabling the government to foster economic growth without increasing public sector debt. While the government has dismissed the idea of raising personal tax rates, Reeves could still consider targeted measures such as increasing taxes on luxury items or profits from the financial services sector to generate revenue in a less politically risky manner and address some of her critics within the Labour Party. Collectively, these strategies could offer a way out, but only if the Chancellor is willing to break from traditional approaches. Professor Nellis stated, "In order to progress, Rachel Reeves might have to relax her position on fiscal discipline, particularly if she aims to fulfill her commitments to public investment. While increased spending could provide a boost to the economy, the government must also consider all options to ensure that any future growth is financially viable. This implies looking beyond rigid regulations and immediate headlines. It necessitates a thoughtful approach to reform implementation, and we are glad the government has agreed to our request for a timeline for these actions. The decisions that lie ahead are complex, but according to Professor Nellis, they are essential. The UK's debt has risen considerably, with the debt-to-GDP ratio approaching 100%, and the cost of servicing this debt is projected to exceed £100 billion annually in the coming years. In summary, time is of the essence. Thanks for watching till the end. Drop your thoughts in the comments section. We hope to see you in our next UK Pancakes.